So I wanted to start today with one of my favorite poems to read around the holidays. It's called A Steve Cohen Christmas. Once upon a time, in the borough of Queens, the orange and blue led by Will Ponzi schemes. Nepotism's wealth lasted the last song. Fans prepared to send them to hell where they belong. Enter the savior of 16 billion net worth. The new king of Queens was a fan since birth. As he rises from the ashes in elegant lift, he says, "Gather round, I come bearing gifts. I'll buy you Max Scherzer. I'll trade for Lindor. I'll buy you JV. But wait, there's more. The trumpets will sound as Sugar Diaz is back. Marte, Canna, Escobar as your Black Friday pack. With the man who leads off and sprints with a smile, 8 more years, he'll be here for a while. I'll never be finished. I'll sign Senga from Japan. I'll reclaim Ottavino. I'll grab Quintana because I can. I may be your saint, but I can be a Grinch. I'll steal Correa from the Giants at a 3 a.m. pinch. 500 million and I'll spend $1 billion more. I'll make late Steinbrenner look like a starving whore. The owners may hate me. They may throw a fit. But they tend to forget that Lord Cohen does not give a shit. We're here to win now, dominate like Piazza. As the fans remiss, hey, remember when we signed Alejandro De Aza? So raise your glass to begin a dynasty. Mets fans, welcome to 60 minutes of brutal honesty. So it's time for episode 3 of the Mets Weekly Podcast. We've got tons to talk about, but before we get into it, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on TikTok. All the links are in the description. As for those listening to us on 8 different listening platforms, if you guys want to ask us a Mets-related question, make sure to fill out our form that is in the description, and it could be featured in next week's episode. So let's get into all the madness. I'm just going to ask and go around the table. Frank, how are you feeling right now? It has been crazy this last week.
It has been crazy. I'm still even a little tired because, the Mets have been putting us hard at work because they're just going all out, getting guys, rumors, trades, free agents, stealing guys from teams that look like deals are done. So it's just been a really fun time. I still can't believe everything that they've done already. And just the fact that they're going to do even more is it's just wonderful. So it's been a great offseason, and hopefully it just keeps getting better.
Yeah, and we thought winter meetings week was all right. Most of the big stuff, maybe an occasional bomb, and it just seems like every night at 2 in the morning, Cohen's like, you know what, let's piss off the fan base a little bit. Here's another one. Here's a trade. Here's another signing. Like, does he not know that, we're in New York? Like Tony at least has the benefit. The Correa signing for Tony's time was midnight. So it's okay, midnight, 1 in the morning. For you two, it was 3 in the morning. For me, it was 2. It's I know he's in Hawaii sipping on a Bacardi on a beach somewhere, but Steve, I get it, pounce whenever, but, this is just it's how it is, and it's fun being the MJF of baseball now. Everybody hates us, and our reign of terror is just beginning.
The question is, how am I feeling? Is that correct?
Yeah, how do you feel?
Pretty good right now. A few hundred phone calls and text messages exchanged with friends and family after the Correa news. Seeing friends in person here that, are fans of other teams just giving me that glare, that side eye, it is fun right now to be a Mets fan, and everybody is jealous of us. And honestly, I'm loving every second of it.
Let's just jump into the top story. In case you missed it, the Mets swooped in at 3 a.m. Eastern time with a bombshell that shocked the world. The Mets have signed Carlos Correa to a 12-year, $315 million contract as his initial deal with the Giants fell through. Sources report that it may have been a mutual disagreement between Boris/Correa and the Giants regarding his medical information. But nonetheless, Correa now joins the Mets and will play third base alongside his longtime buddy Francisco Lindor, where they'll have plenty of practice together on Team Puerto Rico in the WBC this March. I don't even know where to start here, so open the floodgates.
We had a video recorded about a week ago being like, this would be great. Yeah, this is the bat we need. This is the 5-hole hitter. And then San Francisco just drops their Aaron Judge contract on him. We're like, okay, that sucks. And then we start seeing the rumors and we're like, there's no way this deal falls through, right? This is some lull Met type thing. There's no way this would just fall apart. And here's Cohen RKOing Major League Baseball again out of nowhere. Just says, I'm on vacation. Boris calls me. You want to get a deal done? Let's get a deal done. And the fact that we're going to add this guy, who's one of the best defensive shortstops in the game, put him at third base, have fun trying to get a ball through that hole with Lindor's range and now Correa on that left side. And this is a guy, yes, is he the most healthy player, which we do have that concern. He's only played 150 games once in his career. I don't really care about that, especially in today's game. And him moving off of shortstop maybe helps his health and maybe not being as rangy as have to dive through this up the middle, diving to his right. He only has to really go to his left, occasionally just guard the line. And this is a guy who can give us that 25-homer bat, the Alonso protection, to say, hey, you have to pitch to Alonso now because one of the best high-leverage hitters in baseball is now batting behind him. So pick your poison. Do you want the polar bear or do you want Correa? And it just deepens this lineup where now McNeil's hitting sixth. And now the bottom half of this lineup, you can put the kids, or we'll get to it later. This deepens this lineup to, it didn't have this last year. This is the DH or just the bat you needed at the deadline. Now you have it. And the fact that now you can use Eduardo Escobar and trade him for some prospects. You could use maybe the trade future trades. You could trade him for a high leverage reliever. Maybe we'll get to later. There's just so many benefits to this trade, not just in the lineup and defensively, but now throughout your organization, it makes your team way more flexible, and it gives you a better shot at making the playoffs. You're adding, once you get into them, one of the best postseason players of this generation. You're just adding to a lineup who finally, most of them got their first time in the playoffs. Now you can add that and his leadership in this locker room. It's just all positives, and you got him a year cheaper and about $35 million cheaper than the Giants gave you. So there's nothing but benefits and smiling. I can't stop smiling and just loving the hate that we're getting from other fan bases because they're jealous.
I mean, we had a recorded podcast of the Carlos Correa sweepstakes when the Mets were getting very heavily involved with him before his original agreement with the Giants. We ended up throwing it out because in the middle of that stream, he went to the Giants. But during that, I said, this is the bat that would put the Mets over the top. So now that they did get him, I still feel that same way. I mean, this is such a huge signing for the New York Mets. Like Andrew said, you now have that protection for Pete Alonso. I think he hits perfectly as the guy in the fifth guy in this order here. I mean, when you look at this lineup up and down, there are no holes at this point. The DH situation should sort itself out one way or another. The catcher position, there's not a lot of great hitting catchers no matter how you slice it in baseball right now. I think you can get by with Nito and Narvaez and potentially something from Alvarez down the road. But the whole point being, you brought in a superstar who's going to play Gold Glove defense on the left side of the infield, who's one of the best hitters in the game right now. And, I mean, it's just unbelievable right now to be a Mets fan. You said earlier that I have the advantage being on the West Coast. No, because I was sleeping when I woke and then woke up at 3 a.m. and could not go back to sleep after reading that news. So I wasn't sure if I was dead or alive or if I was dreaming on my way to work at 7 a.m. because I had been up since 3. It was such a trip to see that he had actually gotten out of this Giants contract and for Steve Cohen to swoop in, Martini and olives in hand, and get the deal done from Hawaii. Huge move. This has shades of the 2005, 2006 off seasons right now when the Mets got Pedro, got Carlos in 2005, and we were on that ascent. That's kind of what last year was. And then the team got put over the top when you brought in Billy Wagner and Carlos Delgado. This is the team to beat in baseball right now. Thank you, Steve Cohen. Thank you, Billy Epler.
We've been talking about Correa for a while now. He's a guy that, I always really, really wanted the Mets to get. Even the last year, I said, who cares about the qualifying offer? Get this guy on the team. And he went to Minnesota. It's like, okay, we got Escobar, whatever. I just always felt he was such a perfect fit for this team. And I said he would be willing to play third base. So many people follow me on that. They'd be like, oh, no, he only wants to play shortstop. He would never play third base. I said for Lindor, he would. And sure enough, he's thrilled to play third base for Francisco Lindor. So at least they got that out of the way. Not, oh, my God, you have two shortstops. What are you going to do? Perfectly fine. Another team in New York did it. Those guys didn't get along, but they still had a lot of success. So I'm excited to see that. But what's so great is that it looks like the Giants deal was done and he was off the board. So before they signed him, we were at the point where it's like, Correa's with the Giants. There aren't many big bats left out there because we all believe that the Mets needed at least one more big bat to bat behind Pete Alonso. We all felt that. And eventually Steve Cohen came to that realization and was like, you know what? We actually could use some more offense because the Mets have made plenty of moves. Getting Verlander, getting Senga, David Robertson, bringing back some of the same guys. So we're waiting for that big-time improvement offensively because I say it all the time, in the playoffs against San Diego, when you're scoring 1 run in game 1, you're scoring 0 runs in game 3, it's clear that you need a little bit of a dose of offense. You needed another big bat in there that could step up in those big moments. And when you looked at Correa was off the board, it's like, where are you going to get that from? Are they going to make a trade for Rafael Devers? These are all things that we're talking about. Then all of a sudden, wait a minute, no, they somehow absolutely stole him from the Giants. Just unprecedented. Never seen anything like this where a guy gets the agreement to that kind of deal and then all of a sudden ends up on another team for less. Because think about it. If the Mets outbid San Francisco was original offer, the Mets would have had to give Correa 13 years, maybe $350 or over $350. They were still able to get him while doing a less offer. It just worked out in so many different ways for this team. It just created so much excitement in the fan base, throughout all of Major League Baseball. And everyone's got to be on alert that you never know when Steve Cohen is just going to strike and say, if I want something, I will get it. So, and also just the way that we've really improved our relationship with Boris, and he represents, pretty much all the top players. So it just makes it a lot easier to get these guys because now I'm surprised that the Giants were even able to get Conforto because I thought Boris would have held a grudge against them, been like, oh, watch this. Now you can't get him. We're going to, do funny business with you guys too. But I still can't believe it. I mean, even a few days later, I just can't wait to see it. I'll believe it when I see it. Like when I actually see Carlos Correa in that Mets uniform, hitting home runs and making things happen, driving in runs, then I'll really fully believe it. But as of right now, I still feel like I'm on cloud 9. I'm just super excited that they were able to pull this off.
Now, the physical is currently pending, still out there right now. So it's not official yet, but as from what we've heard from Boris and what we've heard from other sources, that there's not any health concerns. It looks like the Giants just got cold feet. This is incredible. This is like one of the craziest things I have ever seen. This is the most amount of fuck you money I have ever seen spent in a lifetime, in a span of a year. And the sad part is, you think you hate us now. Most of this money comes off the books in 2 years, people. It's going to be even more insufferable. Of course, we talked about this on a few streams and a few videos. The next CBT is going to be hell. We know there is. They're going to try to stop him. Bro, regarding Alonso and McNeil, we don't know yet. Obviously, they're still on their rookie deals. But Nimmo, Lindor, Correa, guaranteed to be here 8 years to a decade. You have your stars. They're there. You have your long-term pieces, but then you also have most of this money coming off the books. You can add some guys in, trade some guys out. You have tons of assets. We'll get to that stuff later, but they're in such a good spot right now. They set themselves up to give a contract out like this in the last 2 years, bringing in these guys on short-term deals. And it's just Carlos Correa. I mean, this was one of the biggest fish on the market. You had Aaron Judge, and then you had Carlos Correa. Those were your top dogs. You wanted outfield, you wanted infield, right? Carlos Correa is now going to move to third base. He was marketing himself as a shortstop. Like Frank said, he'll never play third base. He'll play third base for Francisco Lindor because they're such good friends. That was the same thing that went on with Javi Baez. He said, I'll only play second base if Lindor's my shortstop. Maybe it's just the influence of Francisco Lindor. The devil, you say.
Actually, when the Mets did acquire Lindor, oh, what a mistake. Why would you trade for this guy? So many other shortstops available. I mean, you could have got all these different guys. Do those other guys recruit Carlos Correa to play third base?
I don't think so.
So it's just like that. You didn't know that was going to happen. I don't think their foresight was that good, but it's just like that trade looks even better now because the fact that they picked Lindor over all the other shortstops, it allowed them to really recruit another marquee guy in Correa to play third. Because third base is a tough position. I mean, you have like a handful of guys that are elite, and Correa, he's going to slide over third base to get into that company because those other guys, you're looking at Arenado, you're looking at Machado, you're looking at Devers, Riley offensively, maybe. Because other than that, I mean, how many big-time third basemen are out there? They're not available. None of those guys are available.
Of course, you forget the most underrated and best third baseman in Jose Ramirez. You just completely forget.
I always forget that. He plays in Cleveland. Jose Ramirez as well. You got Jose Ramirez. But other than that, again, those guys are available. So it's hard to get a good third baseman. We've talked so much about graveyards ever since Dave Wright retired. Massive third base graveyard. And we were hoping that Brett Beatty was going to be that guy. But now you got a guy. And now Beatty is just gravy, whether he's in – we'll get to it later. But now you got that guarantee, and you just hope that Beatty could just be a bonus at this point to help you out even more, whether it's on this team or off this team.
Flores, J.D. Davis, and Michael Conforto all reuniting in the Bayou area. So, that's a nice reunion story,
This Correa coming to the Mets thing also is kind of like unfinished business. And you're probably scratching your head, what do you mean unfinished business for Correa with the Mets? Carlos Correa cost the New York Mets the 2015 World Series. I will go to my grave saying that. The botched double play ball in Game 4 ALDS, where the Royals came back to win, go on to win the series. Had the Mets never played the Royals in the World Series, I know they would have won that series in 2015. So Correa, you always at least won.
I'm amazed. I really am. It still does not feel real. Just to get one of those top tier guys, because we got the top tier guy in Max Scherzer last year, but now like hitting, it's a different thing. It's a more crazier market, and for things to just fall in place like this, like it did, you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? You're waiting for some bad news, right? But we're on such cloud 9 right now. This is crazy. This is insane. Like, what is going on right now? This team is nuts. Please stop signing people at inconvenient times, though. Can you stop doing that? I love the aggressiveness. I love, like we say, the Diamond Dynasty mentality, but like, please do these at more convenient hours, please.
The complainers with Steve Cohen spending too much money, especially to the owners who billionaires complaining about billionaires. Nobody wants to hear about it, okay? But great tweet here from John Saponara, who I follow on Twitter. The Phillies have Harper, Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber, Castellanos, Real Muto, and Wheeler, all outside additions. Padres, Machado, Soto, Bogarts, Snell, Darvish, Musgrove, Hader. Why all of a sudden when the Mets are doing it, is it a problem? Go, you know what yourself if you got a problem with what the Mets are doing.
And not to mention this tax that he's paying goes to the owners. So fucking spend it then. Like, that's your problem. Again, but, whatever. It's a external, internal ego type of thing where they don't like to be showed up by other guys there. But we've had Mets versus the world for about 60 years now. We can do it for 60 more. I don't care. If you hate us, you hate us. And if you want to beat us on the damn field.
The Mets spent quite a bit of money last offseason. And it was a disappointment. You won your 101 games, whatever. But going out to the Padres, the wild card round, that was brutal. But that didn't scare Steve Cohen. If anything, he doubled down. And you just get the sense that this guy is so committed that, let's just say, worst case scenario, this team goes out in the NLCS. He's going to spend more to make sure that they finish the freaking job. It's not going to be like with the Wilpons where, we got to World Series. We had our shot. That's it. We're not going to get back there. I mean, you feel that Cohen is going to do whatever it takes to get back and just keep improving. If that means spend more, he's going to spend more because he has the money and he's a fan and he cares about winning. These other owners that are just pocketing his revenue sharing, they don't care about winning. They just care about pocketing more money, because if they did care about winning, they would spend even a little bit. Even a little bit. There are some organizations like Cincinnati, they do the bare minimum. I mean, Oakland, they signed Trevor May. Wow. That's their big free agency acquisition. Whatino was brutal last year. I mean, there are owners that seriously have that mindset. Pittsburgh, I mean, you can just go on and on. They don't care. At least Steve Cohen, his goal is winning, not just pocketing revenue sharing money. He's giving them the money and they're just going to pocket it. So he say, you know what? I'm going to keep getting better while you guys keep getting worse.
You get no sympathy from me. especially after going through what we went through with the Wilpons and how incompetent they were for so many fucking years. With what we have dealt with as a fan base, it's definitely something that we do deserve. It may not look like it because we're on this big New York market, and the big markets get everything they want. But there's another big market team that did this for a long time, and we just sat there in the shadows. Not anymore, folks. Not anymore. So this Correa madness, I'd say, will definitely have a part in a lot of the topics that we go on here. And that also goes from the timeline going back to the 3 a.m. Correa madness. Before that happened, we were on a stream discussing that the Mets also re-signed Adam Ottavino to a 2-year, $14.5 million contract with a player option in the second year. Ottavino was the key right-hand man to Diaz all season long last year, posting a 2.06 earned run average, a 2.85 fielding independent pitching, striking out 30.6% of batters faced, 65.2 innings pitched. The Mets make the back end of their bullpen even stronger with now a fourth legitimate high leverage arm.
My favorite thing about the Ottavino deal is just the fact that it wasn't necessarily that they replaced Ottavino, they added on to him. Like the fact that it's 4 high leverage guys is what I like the most, because now Ottavino could be utilized a little differently. I really like the idea of using him in the 5th inning, using him in the 6th inning, if you feel like the situation calls for it, if he matches up well with the hitters, if you feel like it's just a high leverage spot, because it just felt like there were way too many times where they're asking a little much out of Ottavino. I mean, the one that comes to mind was early in the season against Atlanta. He pitched like 3 days throwing, got absolutely bombed that third time out because he's just being overused because you couldn't count on anybody else. All these other guys could not be trusted in big spots. They couldn't even be trusted with big leads. I mean, you'd have the Yohan Lopez's of the world against Atlanta in the doubleheader where he's just trying to give the game away and Diaz or Ottavino has to come in. But you ship those guys out of the country because they don't belong in Major League Baseball, and you get more high leverage guys. Not only do you get Ottavino, but getting Robertson, getting Raley, and maybe somebody else or somebody's else, maybe like a multiple extra relievers, because it just seems like this is a big point of emphasis for them, and I really like that approach. I think that is the way to go. Shortening games is crucial. Asking less out of your veteran starting pitchers. You have an injury-plagued rotation, an older rotation. If you can count on that bullpen more to get the job done, it's just going to make long-term success for the entirety of the season much easier.
Like Frank said, I do like how the Mets, this isn't, they're just bringing him back with the same team. Now he's 4th on the pecking order, in my opinion. Potentially going to be 5th, which we'll get to later. That, like Frank said, you can deploy this guy anywhere now. He can just be your 6th inning guy. You can still keep him in the 8th inning if he's still pitching as good as he did last year. I don't expect that. And especially now you have some other high leverage arms. And I'll bring up a idea later in the pod about maybe we made it. There was a lot of A team and B team last year with the Mets. This year's A team and B team in the bullpen, let's say there could be some massive upgrades compared to the B team of last year to the B team potentially this year. But again, this is a guy, another high leverage arm. And even at age 37, he's not a guy that needs to control velocity. As long as that slider is spinning, he can get outs in the big leagues. Like, it's nice to have the fastball, but that's not what Adam Ottavino is. As long as that slider is still that UFO that it is, he can still get outs in the big leagues, and now there's less pressure on him because there is David Robertson behind him, Brooks Raley, and obviously Edwin Diaz as of now. So, again, this is a great add to just deepen in the pen, and like Frank said, keep shortening games. So every night, Scherzer doesn't have to go 7. Verlander don't have to go 7. Those guys can give you potentially 5 and fly or 6 and fly, and you can trust that the backhand of the bullpen can get those last 9 outs, 9 to 12 outs, and feel comfortable. And yet, and also keeping guys fresh. You have other guys, especially guys like Adam Ottavino, who's 37. You can keep him fresh as well as David Robertson at that age because there are other high leverage arms.
Yeah, why not? Had a really solid season last year. Pretty affordable contract there. I don't love the idea of a player option because, pitchers, relievers are very year to year. There's a chance he might not be as successful here this year. But just adding him into that mix that now includes Robertson and Raley, and we kind of expect might even feature another name like hit, a big name, like why not? Like Andrew said, puts him at 4th or 5th in the pecking order. So you're just hoping on at least one more good year out of him, and whatever happens the year after that, whether he opts out or opts in, you just are hoping to get one more good year like you got out of him last year. I said in a previous stream, I like name brands when it comes to the bullpen. Don't give me RC Cola. Don't give me Welch's Grapefruit. I want classic Coke. I want Mountain Dew. He's probably like a Dr. Pepper, Adam Ottavino. I mean, it's got its time and its place. It's not the old reliable, but when you do want a Dr. Pepper, it slaps. And that's Ottavino right there. Nothing wrong with the signing. I'm happy with it. Why not?
So I said this before. We have 3 of the best sliders in all of baseball. We have Brooks Raley, nobody talks about, which is like the full-on tunnel one. We have the super sweeper that Ottavino has, and then the one with the razor blade in it that Diaz has. Incredible weapons, insane looks from every single part of this back end now, and it seems like they're not even done, and we're getting to that later. Again, we have concerns about his age. We know that it's hard to repeat when you are a reliever. It's hard to repeat when you're older. It's hard to, have that consistent production. But again, the protection you built around him of Raley and Robertson, he doesn't need to pitch 65 innings like he did last year. I'm excited to see what else they do with this bullpen, including, yet again, a move we'll get to later. But Ottavino was incredible for the $4 million bargain they brought him in for as a possible backup closer to Edwin Diaz. He was pretty much the only major bullpen move that they made last offseason, and now that's not even the case. They bring protection, and I mean, again, like Andrew said, as long as that slider is as spinny and as slurvy as ever, he's going to dominate.
Hey, let me say this, by the way, as I know Frank's issues with Yohan Lopez go deep, but I feel that same way about Tommy Hunter. Now, I know his numbers weren't terrible.
Ooh.
I don't want to see any more Tommy. I don't.
Wow, that's a hot take.
I'm not a fan. I do not like Tommy Hunter.
Are you fat shaming?
Yeah, I know, right? I don't know. I don't
Surgery shaming.
I'm just saying, the deeper we get this bullpen 1 through 8 right now, the less we ever have to rely on insert whatever name of that person that you're not a fan of. For Frank's case, Yohan Lopez. Me, Tommy Hunter is like the guy I don't want to see anymore. So just keep filling up this bullpen with quality arms and hope they hold up as long as they can.
Thank you for reminding me about that hot take thing, because I was going to put like a hot take spreadsheet and kind of like compile the points of who was right and who was wrong like throughout our podcast. So I'll get that thing started, because I do want to keep track of who's stupid and who's not.
Sure, Hunter was great. 0 ERA, 1,000 batting average. Like, the guy was perfect. And 1 back injury because of a celebration against the Braves. He's an older guy. It happens. But the good thing is that Tommy Hunter's on a minor league deal now. So it's like, if we see him, it's because somebody got hurt, and it's not, like we talked about many times, the bankers and the Ducks and just everything in between. Like, just no more of that.
So after the Correa news as well, I said before I drifted off to sleep, the next 24 hours just cannot get any better. Well, Billy Epler told me to shut the fuck up immediately after. Satan is gone. The Mets have traded James McCann to the Orioles for a player to be named later. 2 years ago, the Mets signed James McCann to a 4-year, $40.6 million contract. I'm not even going to do a rundown of his tenure with the Mets, because we just know he sucked. He was so bad that the Mets are going to be paying 75% of his remaining contract of the $12 million that he's getting each year for the next 2 years. The Mets will now roster 3 catchers, including the newly added Omar Narvaez, Tomas Nido, and MLB's top prospect, Francisco Alvarez.
The commemorative video that was going around Twitter was amazing. I think it was like In the Arms of an Angel, the whole pets and shelter music on the background of him hitting into 1 million double plays. We will not miss that. His defense was terrible. We were sold a bill of goods. Even SMY tried to spread the misinformation about how he was as an offensive player. Clearly, he never lived up to even half of it. It's just good news that he's gone. This is, I always say this, salt the slugs. Salt all the slugs on this 40-man roster. He was the biggest of them all, in my opinion. Thank God he is gone. I don't care that we have to pay 19 of the 24 million. I don't care. It is great news that he's gone. I thought maybe we'd get a little more than a player to be named later in the deal, considering how much of financial commitment we still have toward him. But again, I'm not going to pick this apart and say it's a bad trade. Anything that got him out of town that didn't also cost us other players on our team is a good trade in my eyes. So happy about that.
Apparently, the Orioles really do like his expected batting average, and I think he got very, very unlucky and think he's going to be a superstar. So maybe we're doing them a favor in the fact that we're paying 75% of it. Maybe we get a Hudson Haskin out of it. Who knows?
I went live because it had to be solo because everybody was dead sleeping at the Knicks game, so it was just that meaningless of James McCann getting traded. Who cares? Like, you paid $19 million to not have him on the roster and watch him being turned into David Justice and Moneyball, that he'll go to Baltimore and just turn back to the 280 hitter and he'll hit 19 homers and be an actual productive backup catcher. It's not going to happen. It had to move. Gets how we call the fat guys off the roster, guys that can only play one position. Him being only as a catcher and just getting a raise for being James McCann. It's worth it just to get him off the roster. I would have expected a bag of cookies. The fact that we're getting any wing for him, I would have in NHL terms just give him for future considerations, which means nothing. Just take him off our roster. Again, the prospect really doesn't matter. It's just getting the human body off the 40-man roster. And you got your platoon, and then we'll see whatever happens with Alvarez. But McChicken, I'll remember the home run you hit on 9/11 versus the Yankees, and that's literally about it. Oh, and your legendary status as a first.
It's gone. Your trolling piece is gone. It's over. How do you feel, Franklin?
David Pearson is still here. I mean, that's all I got left for me. But, I mean, listen, it's a move that had to be made. Once they signed Narvaez, the writing was on the wall. I mean, I felt that way in the playoffs last year where Nito got all the starts. Even though McCann had good career numbers against some of the Padres pitchers, they still went with Nito and would rather have Nito bunting than have McCann swing the bat. I mean, that's just how Buck and all these guys just felt about James McCann within the organization. So he obviously had to go. I do like that they got rid of him before having to make any decision with the 40-man roster. Like, at least they're able to keep all those young arms that they claimed, where those guys could have, like, some value, some kind of production. Well, McCann, you knew wasn't going to do much. With Narvaez and Alvarez and Nito here, they had way too many catchers. Somebody had to go. McCann was the obvious choice. So I do wonder now, do they hang on to Nito as well? Or do they go Narvaez, Alvarez, or do they go Nito and Narvaez with Alvarez DH, or do they go Narvaez, Nito with Alvarez in the minor leagues? That's the big thing for me, is that I just want to know what the plan is at catcher, because if Narvaez is going to be here for 2 years, I just don't see how that really fits in with Alvarez's timeline, especially with him getting called up at the end of last year. You call him up to be a catcher, not to be a DH. I mean, that is where his value is going to be, is at catcher, because we talked about with third base, it's rare that as a catcher that can hit like Francisco Alvarez. It's very, very rare. So, I mean, you don't want to take that for granted. You want to actually get that done, because what's the point of having Alvarez in line if you can have an automatic out in there as well? So I just think you kind of get both things out of the way, and he can't get better if he's not catching. So we'll see how it goes, but at least that's the first part of it out the way.
Now, before I say my piece and talk about this guy for the last time ever, is it possible that a player to be named later could be the player you traded anymore? Is that still a rule where they don't want him, and the player to be named later that they send back to the Mets is James McCann? Can that happen anymore?
Wait, that's not a real thing, is it?
Yeah, it's happened a few times.
It's happened before. There could be legit that player to be named later could be James McCann.
Even if that did happen, it's still a win, because just shaved $5 million off of what you would have otherwise had to pay McCann. At that rate, if it actually happened, you just release him and wipe your hands clean and say whatever.
I think I've said my piece already about this guy. For those of you who have followed us, I think since the beginning, my first ever big take of me being labeled as Satan was hating this James McCann move. And I told you so. Moving on. There is another conversation that has to be made. What will be the future of all the Mets' top prospects? We know that with Narvaez and Nito here, Francisco Alvarez may not be the starting catcher yet. They may wait 1 or 2 years. With Correa here for the next 12 years, Beatty could be expendable. They're also talked about him being moved to left field. What also happens to Mark Vientos and Ronnie Mauricio, who are also infield/bat options? There's a lot of questions to answer short and long term. Let's just open the conversation here, because there's so many angles you can go at.
Obviously, with a glut of third base prospects, or at least prospects that profile more as third baseman, aka Ronnie Mauricio, Brett Beatty, Mark Vientos, it's blocked. It's over. None of those guys are going to be the Mets third baseman at this point ever, unless there's an injury and they need to step in. Mauricio obviously had this huge winter league in the Dominican, put whatever weight you want into that, but he's really been turning some heads. Brett Beatty looked like he had a professional approach for the most part when he was up in the big leagues last year. And Mark Vientos, think he kind of showed us what he is, and I'm not super keen on him anyway. I think right now you just let those guys continue to develop in different positions. Beatty always kind of did profile as a left fielder. I suggested this last year, and a lot of people didn't realize that they were giving him reps in left field, both in Double-A as well as in fall leagues in Arizona. He's probably going to try to learn that, and the Mets are going to hope they can get a 25 home run bat out of him playing left field. That's really his best spot, most likely. Mark Vientos, I don't have a lot of hope for, but there's a DH now in the entire league. So there's a spot for any three of those guys that proves that they can handle the bat well enough and be a difference maker in the future. So for me personally, we've been talking about how Steve Cohen's not going to be spending $800 million every offseason, and that's because we haven't been trading the crown jewels of this farm system. It's time to let them develop. It's time to put them at positions where we don't have any long-term commitments, shortstop, third base, center field, and let them learn those new positions, learn how to be good hitters, and hope that they come up and make an impact. Because Dodgers, perfect example. Even though they've spent like drunken sailors, acquired MVPs seemingly every offseason, they've also supplemented it with their own guy.
I know Mets fans are stupid, but God, these last 48 hours, y'all are dumb as hell. The fact that we got Mets fans out here trading, let's trade Brett Beatty for a Jesus Luzardo. Yeah, let's trade him to Miami for a box of whale cookie. Brett Beatty is not getting traded. Unless the guy on the other way that the Mets are getting is named Shohei Ohtani, Corbin Burns, superstars. Brett Beatty's not getting traded for Jesus Luzardo because, Carlos Correa is playing third base. Yeah, as Tony said, there's a thing called the DH. There's a thing that he's been playing, started to play throughout his minor league career called left field. And how old's Mark Canha? I think he's getting older than dirt, pretty soon. So he's not going to be here after this year at minimum. So, wait, there's a hole in left field. Or, Shohei Ohtani don't play the outfield anymore. So, we can't say, no. The fact that Mets fans want to now just ship out Beatty for a box of cookies. Ventos is probably going for a used packet of, dish soap at this point. And then Mauricio is the MVP of the Winter League. They think he's the next coming of Jesus now. Beatty is going to be the everyday left fielder. I am making this right now. You can put it on your hot take sheet. He will be the starting left fielder by mid-June. He will be your everyday left fielder. Because I do believe what I would do, first April and May, unless he comes out in spring training and just plays every day and starts just hitting Julio levels, have him April and May in AAA, playing every day in left field. And if Mark Canha does what we expect and regresses, and yes, Mark Canha's hitting 8th right now in his current lineup. If Mark Canha's regressing like he showed some signs of, and you need a spark offensively, which if you need a spark offensively in this lineup, that's a problem. But if Canha starts to not hit, you have Beatty playing every day in AAA, learning left field, and then you let him be the everyday left fielder. Because, again, like Tony said, Cohen is not going to spend $25 million on every single position. He's doing it now because he wants the ability to let the farm develop. And these Mets have made it clear, Epler has made it clear, he's not trading these top gems unless for the right price. And Jesus Luzardo and Pablo Lopez are not that right price. Same thing with Alvarez. These kids got, a month and a week combined of AAA ABs before they got called up for, last-minute offense. It'll be okay if you have Francisco Alvarez playing every day at catcher in AAA and Brett Beatty now learning this new position in left field every day. And when you need them, hey, look, instead of going out and trading for reinforcements, you have 2 of the top 25 prospects in baseball. Now you can come in with a little more seasoning, learning new positions or having more valuable time improving defensively. The kids will be fine. I still think Ronnie Mauricio is the most expendable, and Mark Vientos damn well is the most. Vientos is probably easily the most expendable. Now Ronnie Mauricio not far behind him, and hell, in a trade week I'll bring up later, both of them could be going the other way to add a legit piece to potentially build this lineup. But the fact that overnight, we signed Correa, now Beatty's useless. use some brain cells once in a while. It's not hard. I get it's Christmas time. Everybody's stupid. But damn.
Okay, so to follow that up, the one thing I was going to say, we were talking about core, long-term core. You got Lindor, you got Correa, you got Nimmo. We got that. But we were just talking about Canna. He could be a free agent at the end of the year. If he has like a so-so year and the Mets want to decline it at the team option at the end of the year, you're going to need somebody to be your long-term left fielder. And it would be nice to have a homegrown guy who's not getting paid $20 million, $25 million. This way you could finally have a starter, a long-term starter, who isn't making an absurd amount of money. So I agree with what Andrew said. You can't just trade Beatty right now. You got to wait. You have to see what you have in him. You have to see what you have in Canna and what you have in everybody else. Somebody could get hurt. Somebody could be really bad or somebody could be really good. A lot of things can happen in baseball that are unpredicted that you did not expect. So I don't want to trade Beatty quite yet. But the guy that has to go today or tomorrow, I don't care when, is Mark Vientos. He has to be traded ASAP because there is no future for him at DH, especially with these two catchers. If anybody's going to DHing, it's going to be Francisco Alvarez. It's not going to be Mark Vientos. Mark Vientos, I said before, was a guy who was a top 100 prospect. He is no longer a top 100 prospect. We saw him in the big leagues. He has a nice swing. He has some power, but for the most part, he didn't do much. We know, like Carson told us all year long, strikes out a lot, hits the ball on the ground a lot. I don't want Vientos' value getting any lower. Trade him now before his value continues to diminish, and pretty soon you'll get nothing good for him. While you can still get something of use, something of value, particularly in the pitching department, do it. Get rid of him now because we've talked about Ray with this bench. He just doesn't fit in. You still have Ruff here. Vogelback is still here. You still have way too many guys that don't play a position. Vientos didn't play third base for the Mets. He's not going to play third base for the Mets. He is not going to play first base. Pete Alonso's going to do that. So there's just no fit for this guy. Just nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. He has to be traded before the value gets any worse. Mauricio, Dominican League MVP, great. So was Robbie Cano, played well in that league too. Listen, do it for me in the big leagues. Mauricio, he only gets traded for a marquee young starting pitcher or the superstar of the Ohtani's of the world. Like Andrew said with Beatty. For Mauricio, it's either a superstar or it's a young, controllable starting pitcher. That's how I look at Mauricio. And yes, he will be traded for me because, again, if Correa is here, if Beatty's here, Alvarez is here, I don't think Mauricio serves that much value as a utility guy or a bench guy. He would serve more value being the main piece in a big-time trade. So, to me, the only guys I say right now is Beatty. And let's say Canna's playing really well, and you need to trade Beatty to get Ohtani because you're afraid the Dodgers might do it or something like that, then you can trade Beatty. Other than that, you really should be holding on to the guy.
I believe that Beatty starts in AAA to get reps in left field. I don't think spring training is enough for him to get those types of reps. I personally believe he has the range to be a left fielder, and he also has like a body that looks like a first baseman. He's weird. He's a weird shaped guy.
I mean, all the Yelich comparisons, he might as well play Yelich's position. He has the same swing as him, so might as well play his position.
He has the arm to be an outfielder. He doesn't have the range to be a third baseman. Left field, you don't really need that much range. I think that it's a perfect position for him. Again, like we said with Mark Canna, yeah, it could be a lefty-righty platoon. Maybe, who knows? Maybe Canna's dealt. Like, nobody knows really what they're going to be doing with some of these pieces. Ronnie Mauricio, I have no clue. That's like the outside looking in guy, but he's probably going to be one of those assets that they do trade for a big piece if they want it. If they want to hoard prospects, they can hoard prospects, whatever. But don't hoard prospects at the same position. Like, that's what I mean. Like, if you're going to limit them to one position, have them play it somewhere else. The lack of flexibility and everything that we've talked about. We had a video that kind of got tossed out because of the Correa news because it kind of just destroyed everything. Brandon Drury was in there. He signed with the Angels. We talked about how the Mets can fix this bench. And you look at this bench, you have like 3 infielders, you have 3 DHs, now you have 3 catchers. They have to kind of move some pieces in, move guys to the starting lineup, trade someone, send them to the minors, whatever it is, to bring in that type of flexibility. With how they're saying that Francisco Alvarez is going to be here for his bat. Also the fact that we don't know what the hell's going to go on with Daniel Vogelbach. Maybe he's going to be here. I don't think that they're going to want a backup lefty killing DH. It's a crowded house. It really is a crowded house right now. And I don't know if they want to determine that with selling the veteran pieces or selling off the young pieces and maybe getting some, team improvements, improving the depth. I don't know how they want to do that. And I'm interested to see how they do. But as for Beatty and Alvarez, the future of the catching position, we know that Alvarez is going to be the everyday catcher eventually. If he does turn out to be the number one prospect that he is expected to be, he's going to be our starting catcher. Even though I'd love for him to be the starting catcher starting opening day this year, there are some concerns with him being just 21 years old. He's young, whatever. With the given information that Beatty could be a left fielder, with all his characteristics and everything that goes on with him, Canna's going to be here short term. Beatty's going to probably be here long term. You can't move Beatty. Again, I don't believe that you can move Beatty at all. Vientos, he should have been moved a year ago. I still don't understand that because they kind of just had him hang around in AAA, hang around in AA the last few years. If you're not going to call him up, trade him. And they didn't. They just added more DHs. I really don't know where they go at it because they have a lot of moving pieces and a lot of strong possibilities of what they can do on the trade market and what they can do long term with a lot of these guys coming off the books or staying here long term. Well, as for more moving parts, with Carlos Correa being here, the Mets also could be moving Eduardo Escobar and maybe Darin Ruf for 40-man roster space, according to Joel Sherman of the New York Post. Escobar signed a 2-year, $20 million contract with a year 3 team option last offseason with the Mets. And then Darin Ruf was acquired at the trade deadline in exchange for J.D. Davis and 3 pitching prospects and sucked complete whale shit. I guess I'll just ask, would you guys trade Escobar? Does it make sense to trade Escobar?
Love just shitting on Mets fans right now. This is the guy everybody's keeping. Oh, we can't trade Eduardo Escobar, the 35-year-old, 34-year-old third baseman who's past his prime and is now going to just continue to regress. Brett Beatty sent him to the moon. Yeah, send the guy with the upside and the ungodly potential. Send this guy. But Escobar he makes funny TikToks, so he has to stay. Yeah, for me, if it's $10 million that Cohen doesn't have to pay. If you could turn that into a couple assets, maybe we'll talk about the guy we keep teasing later. He could be a main piece going the other way. They do need a second baseman / third baseman. I would be just completely fine dumping them for a couple of prospects. Again, I am all for continue to add assets. At the deadline, you have even more. You have a couple more extra ammunition bullets to say, hey, we need another reliever because it's always good to keep adding a reliever at the deadline. Hey, now we've got an extra chip. We can do that. Or, hey, we need an extra Trevor Williams-type pitcher. Have an extra asset for them. Darin Ruf's getting DFA'd at this point. I mean, it's $3 million. You can probably attach someone to take a $3 million flyer on a veteran. There's a world where, a bottom feeder takes him. But at this point, just DFA him. You already got $39 million in McCann and Cano just of guys paying money that are not even on the team. What's $3 million more? It's movable, yes. Would I be surprised if they attach a sweetener and just move them? Yeah, it's not horrible to move. It's a lot easier to move the McCann money, and they moved McCann money. So anything is possible. Yes, they had to dumb it down. So I think Escobar could be moved for some. I would love to see him move for a couple of prospects. Hell, maybe even a big league reliever because you can make the money work pretty easy. So I'm fine with moving. I'm not one of these people who are like, oh, we have to keep him. It'd be nice to have the utility piece off the bench, but there are also some couple of free agents who can do that role and not cost $10 million. So for me, I'm not against the moving them. I'm not against having them in spring training, but I think Cohen would like to take a couple extra bucks off the luxury tax, even though he has going God mode. He wouldn't mind taking a few extra bucks off his tax.
Tony, I saw you tweeting some stuff out about how you were for keeping Escobar as a possible guy coming off the bench. Anything you want to add here?
Yeah, Andrew, I thought we were simpatico here. We've agreed on almost everything. You had Beatty starting in spring unless he had, or starting in AAA unless he had a great spring. We were all on the same page until this. I was not all too pleased with Escobar up until probably June or July of last year. I don't think any Mets fan was. That all being said, he really turned it around, had a very strong August and September. I think he is a great clubhouse guy, and I'm not advocating for the best friends cookie club. I'm simply saying that this guy coming off the bench against left-handed pitching where he mashes from the right side could be a huge weapon. He's not the greatest defender, but he is damn sure-handed, and the plays that do come to him at third base, he can make. You can put this guy at just about any position in a pinch. We had Mark Canha having to play third base last year at times. I don't think that'll be an issue now with Correa there, but why take away anything that's going to help this team win the World Series in 2023? You can't tell me Steve Cohen wants to shave off a couple bucks, and it's not only because he is spending like he doesn't give a fuck, because he doesn't, but at this point, literally, there's no more penalties. It's just money, and he clearly has shown he doesn't care. So why even bother taking away MLB assets from this team that can help them win in 2023? If you're telling me that Escobar is a part of a bigger trade that's going to add quality MLB players in other areas, like you mentioned, another Trevor Williams type, maybe a big bullpen name, I can see it. In the right trade, I'd be okay with it, but I'm in no hurry to get rid of Eduardo Escobar. I think he has a place on this team. He could be a 15 home run bat off this bench, playing multiple positions and give you a nice little platoon to mix with Vogelback from the right side of the plate.
Counter?
No counter. I'm with Tony there. I think Escobar. Oh, no, Andrew, go for it.
No. I think we got to have a tag team match set up. So back up Tony, and then we got a tag team match of what's going to happen. So
I'll say, as of right now, Escobar does still have a role on this team, and it's in particular with that platooning with Vogelback, because when you face a team that has like 4 lefties in their bullpen, and they bring in the lefty in the 4th inning to face Vogelback, and then Vogelback is done for the game, who's going to be DH in the rest of the game, especially if Alvarez is starting the year in the minor leagues? I think Escobar fits that really well. Like, he's bound switch hitter to where if, let's say it's the other way around, you're facing a lefty and they go to a righty, you don't necessarily have to take Escobar out of the game. Like, he could still stay in there and you could save Vogelback for something else. I mean, now the way this lineup is shaping up, you don't really need Vogelback to pinch hit for anybody because they're kind of all better than him. But I think that Escobar does have that value. Yes, he could play some third. Yes, he could play some second. Okay. You have McNeil, you have Guillorme. So for that role, they don't really need him. But I think that I'm willing to trade him if it is the right trade, like we said earlier. The big one is the White Sox one. So there's a couple guys on that team that if they need to get rid of Escobar to get him, do it 100%. Again, I'm still looking at young start pitching. I don't know if I trade Escobar for prospects, though. That's the one I'm a little dicey on. I think that we're in this win-now mode. As of right now, we could probably still use him. If Alvarez becomes the full-time DH and Escobar isn't playing at all at the deadline, you want to move him for something? Okay. I understand that. If everything else is going, perfectly fine and he's not really doing anything, then it kind of is a waste of money. But I think right now he still has a little bit of a role on this team. He's not just, completely useless.
So I get it. Obviously, Eduardo Escobar had the month of his career, and it shows. He had the great September. He ended, and this is what the last thing people are going to remember. The godly September. But let's look at throughout the whole season. Let's look at the whole season, not just a month. Very good April. Very nice April. 137 WRC plus. Solid. May, 70. June, 60. July, 100. So average. August, 25. Was injured. Also missed some time. So up to death. Then he had the godly September. 34-year-old. Let's say you trade him, and let's come to a guy I know, Frank, you love to see on the bench right now. Let's say you take that $10 million you ship out for Escobar, and you give it to Jurickson Profar. So just Jurickson Profar is left. Consistency, which is my big thing. April, 121. May, 109. June, 130. July, 119. All WRC pluses. Had a couple in September, which, in 96 and 90. In August and then September. But then we all saw what happened in the playoffs. Came up with some big hits, the Padres, whatever. My thing is, I like Eduardo Escobar. He's a good guy. Again, the locker room guy, he's great. But if you're telling me to take that $10 million and the prospects, whatever, and then use that $10 million to sign a Jurickson Profar, to sign someone to replace him, to do his role younger, even more flexible. Yes, we still have the idea that Escobar can play everywhere. But at age 34, 35, is he really still going to be able to trust him to move all over the place? Where Profar at age 29, knows he can play the corner. He can play second base. He can play third base. That's my thing. I'm not shipping him out of here just to ship him out of here. But there are ways of taking that money and upgrading from Eduardo Escobar. Yes, you have the concern of can he do it in New York, but we do that. We say that, whatever. We just paid $315 million for a guy we think can play in New York. He's a villain. He'll fit in perfectly, but we don't know. That's my main thing with Eduardo Escobar. He can be here if he's on the opening day roster. I'm not going to bitch. I'm not going to complain, but I'm saying there is room to improve his role on this team to be a little more flexible. Hey, take that I'm not saying take the $10 million, shave it off, but take that $10 million, get younger, get a little more flexible, and then add some extra assets at the deadline if you want to add more with those pieces. That's my thing. If Escobar's on the roster, cool, he can be on the roster. But now if you're telling me we get a little more flexible financially or take that money to get more flexible on the roster construction, plus add some extra assets for future moves, I think that's, for me, what I would rather see the Mets do.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's fair because, again, the thing is you're putting somebody on the roster. So I think you can't trade Escobar until you've secured Profar. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what we're getting at here because we're under the assumption that they signed Profar. I don't know. I mean, maybe some team could offer him a starting role and would give him a better deal with the Mets because right now he's not going to start on the Mets. But, I mean, I would much rather have Profar because of that outfield flexibility that this team desperately could use because Escobar ain't going to do it anymore. It's been a while since he played the outfield. He's only gotten older. I don't really see it. Profar, we know he can play a perfectly steady left field. So from that aspect, he does serve a lot more value.
Yeah, if you present it that way, I mean, I can get on board with that idea. I will miss him. I do like him for his clubhouse presence. But all that being said, if you're telling me the team's talent-wise going to get better, tangibly better, then I can't argue against that. I think that going back, and I think you referenced his OPS plus, was that it in April and throughout the season?
Yeah, WRC plus, yeah. Same thing.
WRC plus, right. I think that was over 542 plate appearances last year where we were asking him to be our starting third baseman and basically be the protection for Pete Alonso. You would probably see him in a bench role at this point where he's probably only getting between 350 to 400 at-bats, where probably plays a little bit better than when you were asking him to be the fifth hitter and sometimes even be more than that due to injuries and whatnot. So, I don't know. I feel like he could have another really strong year, but if you're telling me Profar, I can't fault you for that suggestion.
I wasn't really pleased with the Eduardo Escobar addition, but to be honest, I can tell you right now, I know there's two sides to this, of people who don't want to get rid of him and guys who want to get rid of him and think he's expendable. I personally don't care what they do with him because I feel like one of these guys are going to be moved no matter what. But when you look at it, it makes a lot more sense to deal him because best case scenario, we talk about our emergencies. Carlos Correa gets hurt. He's had his injuries, whatever. They're probably going to move to Beatty to play third base, maybe. After that, let's say Beatty gets hurt. The man crush that Buck Showalter has on Guillorme, he's probably going to take him over Eduardo Escobar. So it's just to keep $10 million on here for a guy to just kill lefties off the bench. Again, yeah, it has to be the right return for a guy like Escobar, whatever. But I think someone has to go, and with Escobar not going to be here long term. We know he's not going to be here long term. With the team option, he has a lot of trade value. The team gets to decide whether or not they want to keep him or whatever. And also, he has that type of, he does have a history of success. Maybe he could go to a young team. Again, we'll talk about that team in a second. Again, like I said, we have so many pieces of lack of flexibility, of guys who play to their strengths. You have three infielders now on this bench. You have 3 DHs. You have 3 catchers now. They do need to make it a little bit more flexible. I think that Eduardo Escobar makes the most sense. Again, like I said, if you need to move Guillorme, you need to move Guillorme to make a deeper bench, so be it. I don't think they move him because Buck likes him so much. Taking that money off the books for a guy who's going to have a limited role no matter what with Correa here, and, maybe getting a win now player, maybe getting, I don't know about prospects. Again, that's just another thing. But, addressing that $10 million into another area, whether it's quantity of 2 different bats, like we said in the video that won't go out, moving that money to create Jerickson Profar and Chad Pinder, who can both play the infield and the outfield. But at this point, someone's got to move because your third baseman is here for 12 years. I think the most sense it makes is Escobar.
It's hard for me to argue this, and I won't be right about it, but I'm going to say it anyway. I still would rather move Vogelback than Escobar. I know it doesn't make sense because of the money, but I'm sorry. Vogelback is a net negative to me when you look at him. He's taking up one of only 4 bench spots and cannot play the field. He does not hit for enough power. Yes, he gets on base, but what have I always said? It takes 3 more base hits to get him home. That or a home run. He is slow. He is unathletic. He is a tub. And I'm telling you, I would trade Vogelback before Escobar, and you won't have that happen because Vogelback's only getting 1.5 mil. And he gets on base at a better clip, but I'm sorry. I think Vogelback is so useless to this team, especially with a short bench, considering the DH nowadays. You can't have a guy that literally doesn't play a position unless he hits 40 home runs, which he doesn't.
We also brought up that point in the video that will never see the light of day, that one of the controllable parts to the alternate reality, we had 3 different benches we were constructing of different styles that they can do. One of the controllable pieces in every single one of them was Daniel Vogelbach being dealt for a controllable reliever, because that's kind of what they got back. They traded for him in Colin Holderman. So maybe they wanted to retain it to deal him, but we haven't really seen much about him being possibly dealt. I'd say that, Vogelbach is a trade option, obviously. Ruff can fuck off. Who cares? You want to have depth, and you want to have a quantity of different pieces of quality, such as, like we said in this video, that won't see the light of day. Profar, Chad Pinder, Brandon Drury was on there, but obviously he signed with the Angels. So that taking up less spots. Obviously, that was another point that we did bring up, but I don't think trading Vogelbach really solves the third base issue of all these third base options that you have. Maybe it solves the DH issue a little bit more, but
it might make it even harder, because then who's your DH against righties? If you want Escobar to be a full-time DH, you could, but I don't know.
Naquin's coming back.
I sure hope not.
We've hinted this. I think I kept track of this about 1,400 times throughout this entire episode of the podcast. Over the last week, the Mets and the White Sox reportedly have had discussions about a possible trade for Liam Hendriks. Over the last few years, Hendriks has established himself as one of the best relievers in baseball, while he signed a 3-year, $54 million deal with White Sox, including a year 4 team option that would turn into a vesting option if he was traded. With the Mets also reportedly looking to add one more bat, and also, in this case, one more reliever. Guys like Eloy Jimenez, that was a name that came up with the White Sox, with the bullpen back end of Brooks Raley, Adam Ottavino, David Robertson, and of course, Edwin Diaz. The Mets don't seem to be done in that department. There's been some talks about Liam Hendriks. We've also had some report the White Sox do like Eduardo Escobar a lot.
I mean, that's now the new big sexy rumor is Liam Hendriks. I mean, what more? I mean, if Cohen is just out here just building an all-star team, you already have one all-star closer, a couple of all-star setup men. Why not add the third best closer in the game to put with the best closer in the game and Liam Hendriks and Edwin Diaz? The ability also of bringing in Liam Hendriks, we talked about the A squad and the B squad last year with the bullpen, where Diaz and Ottavino seemed to pitch every single day when they needed a big game. You bring in Liam Hendriks, you could split up these 6 or 5 high-leverage arms into 2 squads. You can have Diaz keep Ottavino and Diaz together as the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning guys. You bring Hendriks in, could be Robertson and Hendriks to be that 9th inning, 8th inning. And the other thing is, can he pitch outside? It's a stupid thing, but can these guys who have been lockdown closers want to pitch in the 8th inning or the 7th inning? And that's one of the risks you do bring with bringing in Hendriks. And that's why I do like the idea of having the A and the B squad. One, to just spread out the guys. You're not using the same guys every day. You can give one day a day off and have a second. Again, one of the best closers in the game. On any other day, you have, so Diaz is available today. Hendriks is available today. You have a great closer ready to go, and you have setup men with Ottavino and Robertson, and you can use Raley as any. Now you need him any spot. and potentially with some of the upside of the young guys, me and Carson are big on Dayoka potentially being that high leverage guy, taking over Drew Smith's role. Please and thank you, let that happen. And then we'll see what else of the waiver claims, the Brighams, the guys that they brought in to fill out the rest of the pen. But Hendriks is just that guy to add in this surplus of already great high-end, high-leverage guys. The fact that now you have Raley, you would have Hendriks, you'd have Diaz, you would have, again, the best bullpen in baseball, undoubtedly. But again, the problem is you are putting a lot of money and resources into bullpens. Historically, this doesn't work. But historically, you don't put the two of the top three best closers in the game, besides the one time in Chicago, which argue if that guy was even, and the fact you have one of the best left-handed relievers, and then two setup guys who have two of the nastiest pitches in the game. It gives you the ability. It's also veteran-laden, which again, and especially with relievers, they're so finicky. I think if you're going all in, and this is an all-in push, the fact that if you could bundle them, it's going to cost a lot, but it also could fix a couple of, maybe the biggest problem, and just continuing to deep this lineup with a certain Eloy Jimenez. But we'll let the guys say their piece first.
So, Tony, do you think we're being too greedy here? Another elite reliever?
No, absolutely not, especially not for a reliever of Hendriks' pedigree. I mean, every Mets fan would be jumping for joy if it was a good trade to bring him in, where we didn't feel like we were losing as far as what was going back to the White Sox. The question is, what do the White Sox want? They're 81-81. They looked really bad last year. Tony La Russa now has been fired. Does a new manager get these guys back and rolling? I don't know. There seem to be a lot of clubhouse issues. I think it stemmed from La Russa. So let's see how that plays out. But they think they can compete. They think they can go out and win. So what exactly do they want? Just focusing on Hendriks, though, he's owed $14.5 million. That's what the AAV will come out to. It's a club option for 2024. Look at what Craig Kimbrell just got moments ago to be the closer for the Phillies. $10 million. He has been brutal over the last year or two. Look at what Taylor Rogers, one of those guys, Tyler, just got 3 years, $33 million, AAV of $11 million from the San Francisco Giants. Those guys cannot hold Liam Hendriks' jockstrap. If this trade on paper at least seems equal, whether it involves another player coming over from the White Sox, we've heard rumors about Eloy Jimenez, and we're sending back some names, then how could you turn it down? I mean, again, it goes back to what Andrew said, though. Do these big-name guys who are used to being the closers want to come to a bullpen where they're not going to close very often, with the exception of maybe when Buck rolls Edwin Diaz for the meaty part of a team's lineup in the seventh or eighth inning, like we saw a little bit last year? That's something you got to know before you pull the trigger on a potential trade for Liam Hendriks.
Closer role is something I've been talking about for a long time when it comes to New York Mets, and I'm here to tell you, Liam Hendriks does not give a flying F about closer roles. This man is a straight-up psycho. He is a guy that wants to win some freaking baseball games. If that means he's pitching the 8th, if that means he's pitching the 7th with a torn elbow, you best believe Liam Hendriks is going to be out there dealing. I mean, that's the kind of player he is. So I don't worry about that stuff. The Mets shouldn't be worried about that. Liam Hendriks, he'll play. It's like with Correa, we play third. Hendriks will be fine. So forget that. But I think that it's something I want to do. And here's why. Max Scherzer's oblique, Max Scherzer's blister, Max Scherzer's hip. I mean, these guys are too freaking old. If we're not going to do a 6-man rotation, we cannot, and Carrasco's still here, by the way, we cannot rely on big innings out of the rotation. It will not hold up by the end of the year. So if we could, again, just shorten these games, only give me 5. That's all I'm asking, because the rest of these guys will get it done. Robertson, Raley, Hendriks, Ottavino, Diaz, you're good. You don't need to stress these guys out. You don't need to overwork them. If Max could get more rest, it'll make it such a big difference at the end of the season. So it's not, I got blisters. I got this. My side discomfort with these excuses when you get bombed by the Padres and the Braves. There'll be no more excuses if you have the bullpen that is trustworthy so you don't push starting pitchers. So if you've gone this far, go all the way. Build the super pen. Have the best bullpen in baseball. It will help you every single day. It's like having a big-time position player because it's not a starting pitch. It helps you once every 5 days. It'll help you every single day for the 162. So for me, if it's Escobar plus Vientos plus another prospect that's in the teens, whatever, do it. I'm good with it. Let's get it done because I think he's a guy that can help the team out a lot. And if you're giving me Eloy, now we're really talking because we talked about Vogelback a little while ago. goodbye. I mean, Eloy is the full-time DH. It is not Daniel Vogelbach. Eloy fits his team so much more perfectly than Vogelbach does because he is a true power hitter, a true DH, one of the better contracts in all baseball value-wise, super young. He would be such a perfect fit for this line. Guy's looking to hit the ball over the fence, so let's get it done.
A aggression high five from Liam Hendriks and Max Scherzer might shake the freaking planet. And that's something I definitely do want to see. All these relievers we brought in, including Hendriks, are they better than the great Edwin Diaz? No. But they are pretty damn close. I think at this point, what we're looking at is, why is Drew Smith still here? So let's replace him with the best of the best. Why not? Again, this is another guy that fits into this short-term window. Turns into a vesting option if he's traded. I mean, you might as well go ahead. And then you move $10 million for Escobar. That $10 million contributes to Liam Hendriks if you do that. They have those pieces that some teams want, and they can deal them for relievers. And I will say one thing. No one's hitting that five-headed monster. No one. There's no one that's hitting that. The five-headed, and then, you add Deoka, six-headed monster, Josh Walker, 7-hit. But
well, it's David Peterson. It's not going to be Walker. I mean, come on.
David Peterson is going to be playing with Yohan Lopez in 2 years in Japan.
Put that on the spreadsheet. That David Peterson will be out of Major League Baseball in the next few years. Put that on there.
Gladly.
A couple batters. I mean, come on now.
Gladly.
Okay, good. We gotta get you some X's on there too. You want to grill us all the time. We got to get you wrong every now and then.
In, what is it, 2 years, I say? 2 years.
I'll give you three because I'm generous.
3, fine. I don't even need 3. I need 1. That's all I need. Okay. But if you do package an Eloy Jimenez, but he's going to be a DH. And that just means that if you get Eloy Jimenez, Vientos better be fucking gone. He better be gone. There's no way he stays here. I'd do it. Go ahead. Why not? I mean, it's like we said, the value of Eloy Jimenez, the deal that he signed, basically a complete robbery. It's a short-term deal with Liam Hendriks. You let the statistics decide whether you keep him or not. He's insane. He's New York. He's everything New York. He's nuts. He would love to pitch here. I don't think he cares if it's a closer role. I'd do it. Go ahead. Why not? There's pieces we have that the White Sox like. Go ahead. Make a frickin' monster. You already went all in. Go all in times 2.
I'll say this. I give this trade or any trade between the Mets and the White Sox a 1% chance of ever happening. Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner of the team, absolutely loathes and hates Steve Cohen and the Mets. One of only 5 owners to vote against Steve Cohen purchasing the team 2 years ago. And you got to know he's probably leading the charge along with Artie Moreno as owners that are fuming over how much he's spending right now. The New York Mets could offer the White Sox Jesus Christ himself to play shortstop for Chicago, and I think Jerry Reinsdorf would still veto the trade because he does not want to do business with Steve Cohen in any fashion.
And I think the other thing that needs to happen, unless Chicago, I don't know what they're doing, honestly. They're such a weird team. Like we talk about the manager and all that stuff. The one reason I could think of they're moving Hendriks is money purposes. So I don't know if they want to take all of Escobar's contract back. So even if you got to pay half of it, whatever, just to get Liam, do it. Because why else would Chicago be doing that? They need a second baseman, by the way. So maybe that's why the whole Escobar, even Carson, would you do Guillorme in that trade as well? Yeah? Okay. All right. Just making sure. Just double checking. Because, Chicago could use a second baseman. So I think that, like we said, the strengths, the holes, everything, it fits pretty well, both teams. They kind of fit their needs. I hope Reinsdorf's pride or ego, whatever, doesn't get in the way of something that can actually help his team.
The counterpoint to it is that we've seen that this story has developed over the last few days. And if Reinsdorf really, really hates Cohen and that has something to do with the Mets trading with the White Sox, they probably would have hung up the phone in less than 10 seconds. So I guess it was a possibility. There were discussions about it. But yeah, that is something you have to keep in mind because Reinsdorf is a egotistical piece of shit who brought in Tony La Russa and tried to basically just destroy baseball as a whole. And I think that at that point of how annoying Reinsdorf is, they probably would prefer Kaminsky over him, and that's saying much. Now, as for all of these additions that the Mets have been making, there still is one piece where they definitely need some help. Outfield depth. The Mets are also continuing to search for their fourth outfielder, as they have been linked to names like A.J. Pollock, Jurickson Profar, and others. Although the Mets' starting outfield is very good, the depth behind it is definitely thin. Currently, your fourth outfielder is considered to be your starting second baseman. And then you just have Khalil Lee chilling there, who's a very flawed player.
Yeah, my thing this week, anybody but AJ Pollock, please. I can't take it. We've done the experiment with the 35-plus guys far too often. Sounds good, doesn't work. I don't care what his numbers were against lefties last year. The same thing happened with Darin Ruf. AJ Pollock is a walking, talking injury list waiting to happen. This guy has had injuries constantly throughout his career. There was a time when the Mets were looking to get him before he went to the Dodgers. And that same season, he didn't even play 100 games. So as you get older, that chance of injury only becomes even higher. And if you want a fourth outfielder, he can't play center field anymore. He's just a corner now. So he doesn't even serve that purpose as well. I just have a bad feeling about him, that he's just not one of those guys, the Michael Kadires of the world, just these older guys who just are not the same player, especially once they come to the Mets. I just think that anybody but him is what I'm looking at right now. I just think it would be just Darin Ruf 2.0, and we'd be like, what the heck are we doing? We still need another lefty killer. We just got to stop that. I mean, they've been looking for that guy for so long now, and they still don't have it.
Yeah, we've talked about a lot of these guys like Jurickson Profar. Obviously, be a nice fit if he was willing to, serve as a bench piece. Not necessarily starting every day. Ultimately, like I've said in the past, when you're looking for a fourth outfielder, for the most part, you're looking for a defensive first kind of guy. That's really the biggest key to it. And like Frank said, it's got to be someone for me that can play center field and play it pretty well, because they don't seem all too comfortable with sticking Starling Marte out there in center field should something happen to Brandon Nimmo.
And the backup option was Canna playing center, and he's also a year older. I mean, that shouldn't be what you're resorting to. And it can't be McNeil. I mean, McNeil's the only other guy who could play the outfield on this roster right now. He's not a center fielder either.
I'll just leave it at that. Honestly, I haven't even looked at who else is still on the free agent market outfield-wise. So
just say you like Adam Duvall and call it.
You know who's solid fourth outfield option? Adam Duvall. Just saying.
He actually could play center field. Just saying.
Oh, I'm all about it.
Gold Glover.
I'm all about it. I thought of that all on my own, too. So,
with his pastrami back and his baloney wrist and his bat that strikes out more than 30% of the time.
Well, if Frank about sports is serious about wanting a defensive center fielder, then I don't want to hear him ever complain about Ender and Ciarte, because that fills your void right then and there.
No, I want someone to play center and actually hit the ball and hit lefties and hit the ball over
No.
the fence.
Now you're adding extra parameters. You said you wanted a guy who can play center field and good defense. Yeah. That's what Ender and Ciarte
think. Lefty killer. I made a whole thing about lefty killers.
You got Alvarez to lefty kill. You got Ventos if he's still alive. You got plenty of guys who can go out. Maybe Tommy Pham. Hey, he kills lefties. He can play. I'm kidding. I'd rather just drink bleach than have Tommy Pham play. Again, your options are Profar for me is the only guy that I would want. The center field option, he has played center field a little bit. Duvall, rather just kick myself in the dick. I don't need to see that guy play for the Mets. That's just, you want to scream out Michael Kadire, like, oh, a fluke all-star appearance. That's literally Michael Kadire, except he has a little more power. Yeah, with no arm and no wrist. There's the guys for the fourth outfield, just to get these guys set. Decent defensively. You don't need to fill every single hole with like, oh, he has to do this. Can he play the outfield? Can he be a serviceable bat? That's all I ask for. At times, can he be a serviceable bat? If you see him in the lineup, are you yelling? That's my thing. Just be solid enough where like, oh shit, here Devin Marrero's in the lineup, or oh, there's Tim LeCastro if he was a Met. Like, just give me a guy who, when his name's in the lineup, he doesn't want me to just throw it. I don't want to throw my phone when I see it. That's all I ask for a fourth out.
Let's get to rapid fire stories. Jacob deGrom takes out a full-page ad in the New York Post to thank Mets fans for all their love and support over his 12-plus years in the organization. Jake acknowledges Mets fans' passion, devotion, unwavering support from the very beginning will always hold a special place in his heart. The Padres have signed Seth Lugo to a 2-year $15 million deal to be a desired starter. After being drafted in the 34th round by the Mets in 2011, Seth Lugo spent 7 years as a Met, posting a 3.48 earned run average and a 6.6 wins above replacement in almost 500 major league innings. Mets trade deadline acquisition Michael Givens signs a 1-year, $5 million contract with the Baltimore Orioles. The Mets declined their end of Givens' $3.5 million mutual option earlier this offseason as he returns to the team that drafted him in the second round back in 2009. Frank, you want to take this one?
They have officially released reliever Yohan Lopez as they sell his contract to Japan, where he belongs. Lopez has claimed off waivers by Mets during 2020 seasons and proceeded to use his fists more than his subpar talent and ability. Folks, he was not a tough guy. He was not a gritty guy hitting batters on purpose. He just didn't know what the heck he was doing out there. It's just further proof he did not belong in the major league.
The Mets have signed super utility player Danny Menschlong to a 1-year, $1 million contract, 29 years old, and has had just 446 career plate appearances, all with the White Sox. Can play multiple positions, including first base, second base, shortstop, you name it, and also some of the outfield. The Giants have signed Michael Conforto to a 2-year, $36 million deal with a year 2 player option. Conforto, who spent all of 2022 recovering from shoulder surgery, takes a bet on himself as the Giants pivot to him after a nightmare of an offseason they have had. Good luck in the Bay Area, Mike. We're rooting for you. Well, at least I am. The Mets have avoided arbitration with Joey Lucchesi as they agree to a $1.15 million contract. Lucchesi has spent more than a year and a half recovering from Tommy John surgery. We hope to see Joey Curveball back real soon. Happy 40th birthday to the all-time Mets third baseman and captain David Wright. Wright spent 14 years with the Mets as a leader and a Mets icon since he was drafted back in 2001. Wright is the Mets all-time leader in hits, doubles, runs batted in, runs scored, weighted runs created plus, and wins above replacement. We may have Carlos Correa at third base now, but I and millions of Mets fans still will continue to miss that man every single day. Parting words for episode 3.
It was a crazy week. Hopefully no more waking up at 3 in the morning to do 3 a.m. streams and 3 p.m. streams and things like that. But I do hope that the Mets could, like we said, get that bench thing sorted out, whether it's your utility guy, whatever, getting rid of Darin Ruff, figuring out what you're doing with Vogelback and these guys. If they get just a little more clarity on that aspect of it, that's the one priority I would be looking at right now.
And I've been calling stuff in this final outro, so let me call some more stuff that's going to happen in this upcoming week. Merry Christmas as well, so happy holidays to everybody. I'm going to predict this Hendriks deal gets done on Wednesday. And I'm going to say, you know what? Epler's going to go nuts. It's going to be the mega trade. Eloy's coming with him. And 1 or 2 of our golden gooses are going the other way.
It's a crazy week. Unbelievable. This team is ready to roar into the season. I mean, you're going to have a tough division, but all you got to do is make the dance. There's no doubt about it in my mind. We are the new evil empire. Everybody hates us. Everyone wants to be us at the same time. And I am so proud right now to be a Mets fan. So many great things coming.
We have been overworked, overwhelmed, but we are here for every single second of it because the Mets are just going absolutely nuts. And the next time that we see you guys for episode 4, maybe we'll have another entire crazy events of off-season stuff. We don't know. We don't know what they're going to do next. They might just go complete ham and just, get the trade for Ohtani, out the way. Might as well. I mean, we know it's eventually going to happen. Billy Epler loves him. At this point, this team is so loaded that you forget that some of these guys are here. That's how loaded this team is. Hope you guys enjoyed episode 3 of the Mets Weekly Podcast. Make sure to follow us on TikTok as well. Subscribe. Our goal is 1,000 by opening day, but we're probably going to hit it way before then. We didn't do any viewer questions today because a lot of them were outdated. So make sure, click the link in the description if you guys want to ask a question. Go ahead, and it could be featured in the next episode of the Mets Weekly Podcast. We will see you guys next week. Let's go, Mets. Just keep going crazy, I guess.